The elevator lurched, metal groaning like a wounded animal, and then silence. My heart slammed against my ribs as the lights flickered, plunging us into a dim, amber glow. I glanced at her, the stranger I'd been stealing looks at for weeks, and realized we were trapped together. This wasn't how I imagined meeting Riley Carter. For months, I'd seen her in the lobby of our Chicago high-rise, her leather jacket slung over one shoulder, her dark brown hair perpetually tousled like she'd just rolled out of bed. She was the kind of woman who walked into a room and owned it without trying mid-20s. Sharp jawline, eyes that could cut through steel. I, on the other hand, was Claire Thompson, 28, the overworked paralegal in sensible heels and a blazer, always rushing to the law firm on the 32nd floor. I'd spent my life playing it safe, keeping my head down, my heart locked away. But Riley, she was chaos in human form, and I couldn't stop staring. That Tuesday morning, the elevator had been crowded when we stepped in, but by the 15th floor, it was just us. I stood on one side, clutching my coffee, pretending to check emails on my phone. Riley leaned against the wall, her boots scuffing the floor, humming a tune I didn't recognize. The air felt heavy, like the universe was holding its breath. Then the elevator shuddered, and the world stopped. "Great," Riley muttered, her voice low and gravelly, like she smoked too many cigarettes or laughed too hard. She pressed the emergency button, but it just buzzed uselessly. "Guess we're stuck." I swallowed, my throat dry. "Yeah. Figures." My voice sounded small, and I hated it. I wasn't supposed to be this person-timid, unsure. I'd spent years building a life that screamed control, perfect grades, a steady job, a fiancé who checked all the boxes. Except lately, those boxes felt like a cage. Riley turned, her eyes catching mine in the dim light. "You're Claire, right? From the law firm?" I blinked, startled. "You know my name?" She smirked, and it was like a match striking in the dark. "Hard not to notice you. You're always rushing around like you're late for the end of the world." My cheeks burned. I wanted to say something clever, but all I managed was, "And you're Riley. The artist, right?" I'd overheard her talking once. Something about a gallery showing her work downtown. Guilty. She stepped closer, and the air shifted. Electric. "So, Claire, what's a girl like you do when she's stuck in an elevator with nowhere to run?" I laughed, nervous, my fingers tightening around my coffee cup. "Probably panic and hope someone fixes this soon." "Or," she said, her voice dropping, "you could stop running for once." Her words hit like a punch. I'd been running my whole life, running from the part of me I buried in high school, the part that stirred when I saw girls like Riley. I told myself it was a phase, a fleeting curiosity. I had Mark now, my fiancé, who was stable, kind, predictable. But standing here, with Riley's gaze pinning me in place, I felt the weight of every lie I'd told myself. The elevator creaked again, and I stumbled, my coffee spilling onto the floor. Riley caught my arm, her grip firm but gentle. "Careful," she murmured, her thumb brushing my wrist. My pulse spiked, and I didn't pull away. "Sorry," I stammered, stepping back, but the space felt smaller now, the walls closing in. "I'm not usually this clumsy." "You're not clumsy. You're just scared." She said it like a fact, not an accusation, and it stung because it was true. "I'm not scared," I lied, crossing my arms. "I just don't like confined spaces." She raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "Sure. That's why you're looking at me like I'm about to bite you." I opened my mouth to protest, but nothing came out. She was right. I was terrified not of the elevator, but of her, of the way she made me feel like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. I'd spent years building walls, and Riley Carter was tearing them down with a single look. "Relax, Claire," she said, softer now, leaning back against the wall. "I'm not going to make you do anything you don't want to." But that was the problem. I didn't know what I wanted. Or maybe I did, and that was worse. The silence stretched, thick with tension. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and unsteady. Riley pulled a sketch pad from her bag and started doodling, her pencil scratching softly. I watched her, mesmerized by the way her fingers moved, confident and sure. She glanced up, catching me staring. "Want to see?" she asked, tilting the pad toward me. I hesitated, then stepped closer. The sketch was rough but striking, a woman's face, all sharp angles and haunted eyes. It was me. My breath caught, and I looked at her, searching for an explanation. "You've got a face that tells a story," she said, her voice quiet. I just wanted to capture it. I didn't know what to say. No one had ever looked at me like that, like I was worth seeing. Not Mark, not my parents, not even myself. I felt exposed, raw, like she'd peeled back my skin to reveal the mess underneath. The elevator jolted again, and the lights flickered. For a moment, I thought it might start moving, but it didn't. We were still trapped, and part of me didn't want to be saved. "Tell me something real," Riley said suddenly, her eyes locked on mine. "No bullshit. Who are you?" "Claire Thompson." I froze. No one had ever asked me that. Not like this. My life was a series of roles: daughter, fiancé, paralegal, but who was I when the masks came off? I wanted to tell her about the girl who used to dream of adventure, who kissed a girl at summer camp and spent years pretending it never happened. But the words stuck in my throat. "I'm just me," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "Trying to figure it out." Riley nodded, like she understood. "Aren't we all?" The elevator groaned again, and I wondered how long we'd be stuck here and whether I'd survive it. The air in the elevator grew thicker, like the walls were pressing in on us. Riley's sketchpad lay open between us, my face staring back from the page, raw and unguarded. I couldn't shake the feeling that she'd seen something in me I'd spent years hiding. "So," Riley said, snapping the sketchpad shut, "you gonna tell me why you're so jumpy? Or do I have to guess?" I forced a laugh, but it came out brittle. "I'm not jumpy. I just don't like being stuck in elevators with strangers." "Strangers?" She leaned forward, her elbows on her knees, her grin teasing. "I've seen you every day for months. Claire, we're not strangers." She wasn't wrong. I'd noticed her to her swagger, her easy laugh, the way she seemed to live without apology. But noticing was one thing. This being trapped with her, her eyes peeling me apart, was something else entirely. "Okay, fine," I said, desperate to shift the focus. "Tell me about you, then. What's your deal, Riley Carter?" She tilted her head, considering. "Artist, dreamer, professional troublemaker." She paused, her grin fading. "Grew up in a small town where being myself wasn't exactly encouraged. So I left. Came to Chicago to paint, to live, to figure out who I am when no one's telling me who to be." Her honesty disarmed me. I envied it, the way she owned her story without flinching. I'd spent my life curating a version of myself that fit my parents' expectations, fit Mark's vision of a future wife, fit the world I thought I belonged in. But Riley, she didn't fit. She carved her own space. "Your turn," she said, her gaze steady. "What's your story, Claire. I shifted. Uncomfortable. Not much to tell. Grew up in the suburbs. Went to law school. Dropped out when it got too hard. Now I'm a paralegal. Engaged. Just. Living. Engaged. Huh. Her eyebrow arched. And I felt a pang of something guilt. Maybe. Or shame. He must be a lucky guy. Mark's great. I said quickly, like I needed to convince her. Or myself. He's stable. Kind. We're getting married next year. Riley nodded, but her eyes didn't leave mine. Sounds perfect. It is, I said, but the words felt hollow. Perfect was what I'd always chased. But lately, it felt like a trap. Mark was everything I thought I wanted until I started noticing Riley in the lobby, her presence pulling at something I'd buried deep. The elevator creaked, and I flinched. Riley didn't. She just watched me, like she could see the storm raging inside my head. You ever feel like you're living someone else's life? She asked, her voice soft but piercing. Like you're playing a role, but it's not you. My breath caught. She was cutting too close, exposing truths I wasn't ready to face. I don't know what you mean. I lied, but my voice shook. She leaned closer, her knee brushing mine. I think you do. The contact sent a jolt through me, and I pulled back, my heart racing. I'm not like you, I blurted, the words sharper than I meant. I'm not. I don't. Not what? She asked, her tone gentle but unrelenting. Not into women. Not brave enough to admit it. I froze, my chest tight. I wanted to deny it, to push her away, but the truth was clawing its way out. I'd felt it before years ago, with that girl at summer camp, her lips soft and forbidden under the stars. I'd buried it, told myself it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. But now, with Riley so close, I couldn't lie anymore. I'm engaged, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I can't. Can't what? She pressed, her eyes searching mine. Feel what you're feeling. Want what you want. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. You don't understand. I have a life. A plan. Plans change, she said simply. People change. The elevator groaned again, louder this time, and the lights flickered. For a moment, I thought we'd plunge into darkness, but the amber glow held. Riley reached out, her fingers brushing mine, and I didn't pull away this time. Claire, she said, her voice low, you don't have to be afraid of yourself. Her words broke something in me. I wanted to tell her everything, how I'd spent years pretending, how I'd ignored the part of me that ached for something more. But before I could speak, she leaned in, her breath warm against my cheek. I see you, she whispered. And you're not invisible. Her lips were inches from mine, and the world narrowed to the space between us. I could smell her leather, paint, something wild and free. My body screamed to close the gap, but my mind screamed louder, Mark. My family, the life I'd built. I pulled back, my heart pounding. I can't, I said again, but it sounded weaker now, like I was trying to convince myself. Riley didn't push. She just nodded, her expression soft but resolute. Okay. But when you're ready, I'll be here. The elevator jolted, and this time, it started moving. The lights brightened, and the spell broke. I stepped back, my hand shaking, as the doors slid open on the 32nd floor. Freedom, but it didn't feel like it. Riley grabbed her bag, her sketchpad tucked under her arm. See you around, Claire, she said, her voice casual, but her eyes held a promise. I watched her walk away, my chest aching with everything I hadn't said. The doors closed, and I was alone again. But the cage I'd built around myself felt smaller than ever. The rest of the day was a blur. I sat at my desk, staring at legal documents. But all I could see was Riley's sketch of Meadows' haunted eyes. That unspoken truth. Her words echoed in my head. You don't have to be afraid of yourself. But I was afraid. Terrified. Even. Not just of what I felt for Riley, but of what it meant. If I let myself want her, what happened to the life I'd planned? The wedding dress hanging in my closet. The invitations already picked out. The future Mark and I had mapped out. I'd spent so long convincing myself I was happy. But 1 hour in an elevator with Riley had cracked that illusion wide open. That night, I went home to the apartment I shared with Mark. He was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. His tie loosened, his smile easy. Rough day? He asked, glancing at me. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. Elevator got stuck. Total nightmare. He laughed, oblivious to the storm inside me. You're fine now, though. Want some wine? I nodded, but as he poured, I felt like a fraud. Mark was everything I was supposed to want: steady, dependable, safe. But sitting across from him at dinner, I couldn't stop thinking about Riley's hand brushing mine, her voice saying she saw me. I'd never felt more seen, and it scared me to death. The next morning, I avoided the elevator. I took the stairs, all 32 floors, my legs burning by the time I reached the office. But I couldn't avoid Riley forever. At lunch, I saw her in the lobby, leaning against a pillar, sketching. She looked up, her eyes finding mine like a magnet. Hey, she said, closing her sketch pad. You okay after yesterday? I nodded, my throat tight. Yeah. Just processing. She stepped closer, her voice low. You don't have to process alone. You know. My heart raced, but I stepped back. Riley, I can't do this. I'm engaged. I have a life. She didn't flinch. A life that makes you happy. Or a life you're settling for. Her words hit like a slap. I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but I couldn't. Instead, I turned and walked away, my heels clicking on the marble floor. But her question followed me, gnawing at my resolve. That week, I threw myself into work, into wedding plans, into anything that would drown out Riley's voice in my head. But she was everywhere: in the lobby, in the coffee shop across the street, in my dreams. I started noticing things I'd ignored before, the way Mark never asked about my day, the way I felt like a guest in my own life. I'd always thought stability was enough, but now I wasn't sure. On Friday, I ran into Riley again, this time, outside the building. It was raining, and she stood under an awning, her jacket soaked, her hair sticking to her face. She looked like she didn't care, like the rain was just another adventure. Claire, she called, waving me over. I hesitated, then joined her under the awning, my umbrella dripping between us. You've been avoiding me, she said, not accusing, just stating a fact. I haven't. I lied, but my voice betrayed me. She smiled, soft and knowing. It's okay. I get it. This is scary as hell. I looked at her, rain streaking down her face, and felt something break inside me. Why do you care? I asked, my voice cracking. Why me? She stepped closer, her eyes fierce. Because you're worth it, Claire. Because I see the way you light up when you're not pretending. Because I know what it's like to hide, and I don't want that for you. Her words hit me like a tidal wave. I wanted to run, to hide, but I was so tired of running. I looked at her, and for the first time, I let myself imagine what it would be like to stop to let myself want her. To let myself be free. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice barely audible over the rain. I know, she said, reaching for my hand. Her fingers were cold, but her touch was warm, steady. But you're not alone. I didn't pull away. We stood there, rain pounding around us, and I felt something shift. For the first time in years, I felt alive. That night, I went home and looked at Mark. Really looked at him. He was a good man, but he wasn't my truth. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who dreamed of adventure, who kissed a girl under the stars and felt the world catch fire. I'd buried her, but Riley had brought her back. The next morning, I called Mark. We need to talk, I said, my voice steady for the first time in weeks. He deserved the truth, even if it broke us both. Telling Mark was like pulling a thread and watching my life unravel. We sat on the couch, the same couch we'd picked out together at IKEA, and I told him I wasn't sure I could marry him. His face crumpled, and I hated myself for it, but I couldn't keep pretending. I didn't tell him about Riley not yet, but I told him I wasn't the person I thought I was. He didn't yell. He just nodded, his eyes distant, and said, I thought we were happy. So did I? I whispered, and it was the truest thing I'd said in years. The next week was a haze. Mark moved out, taking half our furniture and leaving silence in his place. I didn't cry as much as I expected. Instead, I felt hollow, like I'd shed a skin that never fit right. Work became my anchor, but even there, Riley was a constant presence. I'd see her in the lobby, her sketchpad under her arm, her smile like a beacon. I wanted to talk to her, to tell her what I'd done, but fear held me back. What if I'd blown up my life for nothing? On a chilly October morning, I found her waiting for me outside the building, her breath visible in the cold air. Heard you're a free woman now, she said, her tone light, but her eyes serious. I froze. How did you? Small building. Big gossip. She shrugged, but her gaze was steady. You okay? I nodded, though I wasn't sure. It's a lot. She stepped closer, her boots crunching on the sidewalk. You did something brave, Claire. That's not nothing. Her words warmed me, but they didn't erase the doubt. What if I made a mistake? What if I'm not what I think I am? Riley's smile was soft, almost tender. You're figuring it out. That's enough for now. She invited me to her art studio that weekend, a loft downtown filled with canvases and the smell of paint. I went, telling myself it was just curiosity, but my heart knew better. The studio was chaos paint-splattered walls, half-finished sculptures, music blaring from a speaker. Riley moved through it like she belonged, her hands stained with color, her energy infectious. This is me, she said, gesturing to a canvas covered in bold, swirling lines. What do you think? It's alive, I said, and she laughed, the sound bright and free. She showed me her work, each piece a story of struggle or joy or defiance. I saw myself in them, the girl who'd been afraid to live, who was starting to break free. When she offered me a brush, I hesitated, then took it. I painted a single stroke, red and messy, and it felt like a rebellion. You're a natural, Riley teased, her shoulder brushing mine. I laughed, and for the first time in weeks, it felt real. We spent hours there, painting, talking, laughing. She told me about her first love, a girl in her hometown who broke her heart. I told her about summer camp, about the kiss I'd never forgotten. The words came easier than I expected, like I'd been waiting to say them my whole life. As the sun set, casting golden light through the loft's windows, Riley turned to me. "You're different here," she said. "Freer." I looked at her, my heart pounding. "You make me feel like I can be." She stepped closer, her eyes searching mine. "Can I kiss you, Claire?" My breath caught. Every part of me screamed yes, but fear still lingered, a shadow I couldn't shake. I nodded, barely, and her lips met mine soft, warm, certain. It wasn't like the kiss at summer camp, all nerves and secrecy. This was real, raw, like stepping into sunlight after years in the dark. When we pulled apart, I was trembling, but not from fear. "I don't know what I'm doing," I admitted. "You don't have to," she said, her hand cupping my face. "Just be here, with me." We spent the rest of the night talking, kissing, untangling the mess of who I was and who I wanted to be. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to hide. But the world outside the loft was still there, waiting me family, my job, the life I'd left behind. I wasn't sure I was ready to face it. The next morning, I woke up to a text from my mom, "Dinner Sunday. We miss you." My stomach twisted. My parents were traditional, kind but rigid. They loved Mark, loved the idea of me as the perfect daughter. How would they react to Thistomy? I showed Riley the text, and she squeezed my hand. "You don't have to tell them yet," she said. "But when you do, I'll be there." Her words gave me courage, but they didn't erase the fear. I was stepping into a new life, one I didn't fully fully understand or navigate. But Riley's hand in mine felt like a lifeline, and I wasn't ready to let go. Sunday dinner loomed like a storm cloud. I stood in my apartment, staring at the mirror, trying to see the woman Riley saw, someone brave, someone true. But all I saw was Claire Thompson, the girl who'd spent her life trying to please everyone else. Riley came with me to my parents' house, a quiet suburb outside Chicago. She didn't push, didn't ask to be introduced as anything more than a friend, but her presence steadied me. My parents greeted her warmly, charmed by her easy smile and quick wit. Over dinner, they asked about Mark, and I stumbled through an explanation, saying we'd parted ways. My mom's eyes narrowed, but she didn't press. Not yet. After dinner, we sat in the living room, the air thick with unspoken questions. Riley's knee brushed mine, a silent reminder that I wasn't alone. Finally, I took a deep breath and said, "There's something I need to tell you." My dad's brow furrowed. "What's wrong, honey?" My heart pounded, but Riley's hand found mine under the table, and I found my voice. "I'm figuring myself out, and I'm seeing someone. Riley." The room went silent. My mom's fork froze halfway to her mouth. My dad blinked, confused. "Seeing, as in?" "I'm in love with her," I said, the words spilling out like a flood. "I'm still figuring out what that means, but it's real." My mom set her fork down, her face pale. "Claire, this isn't. You're not." "I am," I said, my voice steady. "I've been hiding it for years, but I'm done pretending." My dad reached for my mom's hand, his eyes soft but uncertain. "We just want you to be happy," he said, but his voice wavered. "I'm trying to be," I said, tears burning my eyes. "But I need you to see me. The real me." Riley squeezed my hand, her presence a quiet strength. My mom stood and left the room, and my heart sank. But my dad stayed, his eyes searching mine. "We love you, Claire," he said. "It's a lot to take in, but we'll figure it out." It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was a start. Riley and I left that night, the weight of the truth heavy but liberating. In the car, She pulled me close, her lips brushing my forehead. "You were amazing," she whispered. I was terrified, I admitted, and we laughed, the sound easing the ache in my chest. The months that followed were a whirlwind. My mom took time, but she came around, asking cautious questions, trying to understand. My dad called more often, checking in. Work was harder whispers in the office, curious glances, but Riley's studio became my refuge, a place where I could paint, laugh, and be myself. One night, we lay on her couch, tangled together, the city lights glittering outside. "You ever think about that elevator?" she asked, her fingers tracing my arm. "All the time," I said. "It changed everything." She smiled, her eyes warm. "Good. Because I wasn't gonna let you get away." I kissed her, slow and deep, and for the first time, I felt whole. The road ahead wasn't easy. There were still doubts, still battles, but I wasn't running anymore. Riley had seen me, and I was finally seeing myself. The elevator had trapped us, but it had set me free. I'd spent years building a life that wasn't mine. But now, with Riley by my side, I was building something real, something true. And that was worth every moment of fear, every leap into the unknown.